The lead British International School in Abuja on Tuesday announced the temporary closure of the school after a video surfaced online showing one of its students, Namtira Bwala, being slapped several times by her colleague, Miriam Hassan. In the videos, Namtira was surrounded by her colleagues who watched as Miriam dealt her smacks on her face. The students were heard making comments such as, "Who broke my heart?" and "You spoiled her relationship." The video attracted a chorus of condemnation on social media, with Nigerians demanding that measures be taken to punish the culprit. The school management, in a statement on Tuesday, said it had begun an investigation into the matter and that the school will be closed for 3 days. Some parents trooped to the school in protest, while a visibly upset relative of Namtira was seen in the video berating Miriam and even dealt her a slap. We're now joined by Adeniyi, director and parent coach, La Posh School, and Olabisi Afolabi, a social development lawyer. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, thank you.
Morning, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have Olabisi Afolabi in the Abuja studio. Thank you also for joining us. Adeniyi with us here in the studio in Lagos. Well, let's start with you, Adeniyi. We have had this incident. What do you think can be done to make schools safe for children? When we talk about the Safe Schools Initiative, usually it's about bandits going to kidnap them in schools and so much talk about perimeter fencing. But what this incident at the lead British International has shown us is that even within the premises of the school itself, on a day-to-day basis, you could have incidents like this of students bullying each other and where really is the problem? The school has shut down for 3 days, but what else should be done? And to you, Olabisi Afolabi, who is in our Abuja studio, well, the parents of the affected child, Ms. Bwala, they've threatened to go to court. Who and who should they be suing? And do you think that that is the best way to resolve the matter? Let's start with you, Mrs. Adeniyi, in the studio here.
Okay. So with the schools, we find that a lot of schools have policies on paper. However, they don't actually implement these policies. When schools implement their policies, and they also ensure that the parents that they sign up, whatever the consequences are that are meted to their children, they will actually accept it. We find in many cases also that teachers from teacher training schools, they are forced into education because they do not get into the careers or the courses of their own choice. So they are forced into education without a love for education. They come into these schools. They are also bullied by management in many cases. You find, we've heard so many stories where a child will do something and get away with it, no consequence. The mother is going to come or the father is going to come and they're going to bully the teachers. Cases where teachers have been made to kneel down to apologize to a student. So teachers are being dehumanized. They are being humiliated in many cases, in many of these sort of schools. So they don't actually have power to actually discipline any child. The children get away with it. I mean, I was reading so many comments, and some of the teachers were like, I was in this school, I was in that school, and I left because the only children that you can actually control are the ones in the preschools. Every other child speaks to you anyhow. There's nothing that you can do. And the parents will come. So the schools also, they have to understand that it's not only about profit. It's about character development. It's about, you have to think about the future of the nation. If we're going to have children that are behaving anyhow come into leadership, they are not being trained. Some of them are doing very well academically, but when it comes to the values, moral values, they're totally bankrupt. So the schools have to implement policies. They have to make sure that everything is not profit-driven. And they have to understand that irrespective of who comes to your school, if your child does something, there's going to be a consequence.
Well, Olabisi Afolabi, the options available to the parents of the affected child, they have already said that they will go to court. Is that the best solution? What other possible options are available?
All right. Thank you very much. First, I'd just like to explain that, the responsibility of a school to safeguard children is an offshoot of their right to protection. So the question will be that the school has a duty of care. Did they fulfill that duty of care? Was there a breach of that duty of care? And definitely the school has a question to answer in that regard. We cannot judge, we don't have the full facts of the case. A court can definitely, state that very clearly and help us to achieve that answer. So it's definitely a way a parent has a right to sue the school where they feel like the duty of care has been breached. However, is that the only solution or the best solution for the child? I would say not all the time, because if in a civil situation it's found that there's a breach of the duty of care, there's negligence, it does not in any way, bring back or repair the damage or the trauma that has been done to the child. So if you want to repair the trauma, if we are making this situation child-centered and we are working in the best interest of the children, our focus right now should be restoration, should be rehabilitation, should be support for the child that was bullied and even the one who has said to have been bullied, right? Whatever action I want to take within the legal space is doable, is possible. The parents have the right to do so. But I would say that this matter is a little bit overblown, and the best interest of the children have been put in jeopardy by the way we have gone about it. So is that the best option right now, looking at how things have gone and how the children have been affected? I would say not primarily. The primary thing is to get help for these children and ensure that they're able to understand what has gone on, the trauma that they've both gone through. This matter has gone so viral, has gone everywhere. How do they relate with this? How is the child reinstated back into the community, to society? How have they learned? What have they learned? How can we ensure that we have a sustainable solution, not just for one child, but for all children in schools? Because bullying didn't start today. It's a very big issue. 78% increase in bullying cases in Nigeria in our schools. So it's a solution, but it's not a sustainable solution, and it would give the parents some respite, which I understand their concern and the way they feel because it's their child. However, in the long run, we're not necessarily helping the child, and we're not necessarily helping the entire Nigerian children to get a respite from abuse in schools.
All right, I hear you, Ms. Afolabi, but in the case of the school now, if the parents decide to sue the school, because you mentioned that there might be some form of negligence in their duty to safeguard children who have been entrusted into their care. I hear you loud and clear, and I do agree with you in terms of being able to ensure that the children are made the center of this. But as a deterrent to other schools, because we've seen this not just in, and I'm glad you said it didn't just happen today, we've seen other schools come up in the news for different levels of negligence to the students in the school. How about the school? Do you think taking legal action against the school or schools who are found to be in want of or are found to neglect their duties, would that serve as a deterrent? And before you answer that, I'd like to just pose this to Ms. Adeniyi as well, so that you can respond at the same time. My question to you would be, I hear you in terms of teachers, empowering teachers. How can we go about empowering teachers? Because it's a thing that's come up a number of times, particularly in private schools, where we have the rich and powerful who make up the parents and guardians of these schools. How can we protect and ensure that teachers are given power again? I'll come to you, Ms. Afolabi. All right, okay. Well, I don't think she can hear me. I'll come to I'll start with Adeniyi. Please go ahead.
Okay, so empowering teachers has to start from training schools. When I came to Nigeria about 13 years ago, so I had done all my education in the UK, and I had to do a certification for Lagos State. And I went to a school in Ketu to get my certification. And what I experienced in that time, I've never ever seen something like that, where they will come and dictate the answers to you. They will ask if you're finished. They will tell us to contribute money, and all sorts of things were happening. It was an eye-opener. I was that ignorant. And when I tell the story, people are like, oh, it happens even in secondary schools. Didn't it happen in my own school? That is where the problem starts. A lot of the teachers that come into the classroom, even when you have interviews, reading is a challenge, spelling is a challenge, speaking, communication is a challenge. In those training schools, they need to begin to build their esteem. It's not always money that builds esteem, because I know a lot of people will say, if you pay them more, yes, money is important, but there are people that have money that don't have self-esteem. There are people that have money that are not confident. There are people that have money that don't communicate very well. So you'd find that also because of profits, a lot of the schools will also employ teachers that are not too highly paid, all very profit-driven, and then they can't even speak to the children, let alone the parents. So you'll find that they are being bullied by the parents and also the pupils. So if you train the teachers properly, if you build their esteem properly, if you empower them and let them know that as long as you are following the rules, these are our rules in our school. If a child should do this, this is what happens. And I would stand by you as a school. But you find that even when a teacher tries to discipline a child, it is not even the parents first. It is the school management that will come for the teachers.
So teachers themselves are being bullied.
Of course.
So we have different layers of bullying. All right, let me come to Ms. Afolabi. Ms. Afolabi, the question around suing the school itself.
Okay, so you said whether this could be a deterrence to other schools, right? When they're sued, if I got you clearly. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
Okay, so between 2020 till now, we've had at least 6 headline cases like this on bullying, on issues in school, even death of a child in school, which was recently just concluded in the courts right now. You know, you would think that that's enough deterrence to make sure that every school goes all out and get these policies and get the systems in place. However, our goal is not to see that one child is abused first and we now try to deter. You see, safeguarding is proactive. Once a child is abused, the effect is eternal, except they get help of some sort. So deterrence comes from monitoring. Deterrence comes from regulation. Now, before this happened in this school, how many times have we had some sort of regulation to check their processes, to check what they have? We have over 18,000 secondary schools in Lagos State. About half of that in Abuja. How are we? What's the plan for the regulation, for the checking of the schools before something happens? So it is clear that suing and legal actions in Nigeria so far, for all the cases I have seen, even when a child died in a school just recently for bullying, around this bullying issue, it has also as a deterrence. So the deterrence definitely is not just in legal actions. It's a way, as I said, parents get some level of respite. However, deterrence comes from monitoring. Deterrence comes from parents themselves acting as watchdogs. Now, everybody has children in school. What questions do you ask before you enroll your child in a school? Do you ask to see policies? Do you ask to see that every teacher has been trained, that there are processes, that if my child is bullied, what can be done? Because bullying, as I said before, we don't need a video to know that there's bullying in schools. So it should not catch any one of us by surprise. That means teachers, school, government, before anything happens, our deterrence is in our monitoring. Our deterrence is in standing up to see that these things are in place. Now, accidents may happen. We know that it has happened because things happened. But first thing is that we have done everything that we should do to stand. Then the issues come, we try to respond to them. So far, so good in this in what we have seen in this space. I don't think legal actions are deterrence. What we should have is strong structures of systems monitored by government, monitored by parents, monitored by every stakeholder. Our justice should be the cry for systems in schools.
Okay, I mean, very well said. But for me, both of you might react to this. But with the Nigeria I know, nothing will happen.
I agree.
Nothing will happen. It's just the same cycle. Yeah. They'll shut down the school for how many days now? 2, 3 days?
It's just to calm everybody down.
So some minister or something will come from somewhere, lap it up and, show activity. Yeah. Nothing will happen. So I think what we should talk about is that culture of impunity where you can be put down in society and you can be beaten and nothing will happen. Are we ready to change that culture? That's the question I'm asking. It's not even putting structures in place that government will monitor. Nothing will happen. And you can bet me on it.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I have actually stated it, because when people are commenting online and saying bring the school down, I have said that there are schools that you can't bring down in Nigeria.
Yeah. That's part of the problem.
That is it. And it's also because of the parents, because as long as those schools get customers, which are the parents, so the issue is not only the schools, it's also the parents that keep giving them the money to continue. So it's beyond the walls of the school. Nothing is going to happen, I agree. I personally gave up when the Sylvester case happened because I was so heartbroken. I was on everywhere talking about this issue with Sylvester. And truly, nothing happened. Nothing happened. So parents are the ones that are funding these acts. When things like this happen, what's going to happen? If the school opens again we've seen so many videos, that's not the only video. When the press statement came out, it said isolated incidents. That's what I read. That's an isolated incident. So the school is saying that they're not aware of all the other things, all the videos that we have been seeing. And the children coming out and saying they report and nothing happens. We've seen them online. I'm not making them up. It's all online. So if you know that your child is in this type of environment, you know, a lot of people put their children in school because they want to belong. They want to hobnob. They say they want to network. They want their children to also network. But technology has changed a lot of things. Putting your child in this sort of environment that is toxic is a risk. But people prioritize other things over the well-being of their own children. And it is always the parents. It's always the parents that are fueling this behavior.
Okay. You talked about structure and everything, but culture, we eat strategy for breakfast. We have a bullying culture. We have a culture where everybody, you are bullied in the church, you are bullied everywhere in this country, you are bullied in the mosque, you are bullied by government officials. You are constantly bullied. So are we ready to change that culture? Or because all the structure you are saying, culture will eat all these strategies you just talked for breakfast. It will eat it like Kobayashi. Nothing will happen. That's a sad reality. What do you have to say about that?
Mr. Afolabi, I'm so happy you mentioned that, because you see, culture is something that the society structures. Culture is not built by children, and it will be hypocritical for us to expect our children to have a culture of kindness when our culture as a society is not kind. The response so far, you know, to this video that I've seen, I beg to say that it has not been particularly kind to anybody, not the child that was bullied, not the child that actually that was said to have perpetrated the bullying. So you see, in a school, for example, a child, we have budget for technical knowledge, skills, for example. A child is best in science, best in mathematics. We celebrate that. What is our curriculum for behavioral outcomes, for issues around morality, their kindness, empathy, social intelligence? So what we're trying to do, even in schools, is that we are raising wicked geniuses, people who are very brilliant, fantastic. However, we are not particularly promoting this kindness. So even though we can put it in our curriculum, which should be actually, Harvard research says that we should have at least 20% for technical skills and 80% on soft skill. But if a school says, oh, parents, you know what, we want to start teaching more of 80% of soft skills and spend less time on mathematics, of course, there'll be an outage. We didn't pay you to teach our children kindness. And it's a collective effort. Parents teach, school teach. The school alone cannot do the work. Now, bringing it back to the larger society as a culture, we can speak, we can say, you know, we can create that curriculum in the school. However, as you have said particularly, everybody is guilty. We are all responsible. We are all parents. We are all parenting these children. That means that in our private spaces, everybody listening to this right now, everybody in the studio, we have a responsibility. We are encouraged to mirror kindness, to show the children the example. They go on social media, there's cyberbullying.
We need to wrap up now. Thank you. But before we go, just in half a second, Mrs. Adeniyi, do you think that the school, apart from shutting down, should expel that student who was bullying the other person to serve as a deterrent to others?
It's a difficult question to answer, because for the children to also cohabit in the same space after this has happened, even it's going to be uncomfortable. So even if they expel or not expel, whatever the case may be, it's going to be difficult for that child. So the parents have to decide what is the best thing to do for my child, because both children are victims. It's not just the bullied. Both children, in fact, most of the school are victims, including the bystanders. Yes. They're all children that need rehabilitation. So the process it's deeper than something I can say in one sentence. A lot has to go into it.
On that note, I'd like to thank you very much, Ronke Adeniyi here in Lagos and Olabisi Afolabi in Abuja. Thank you very much indeed.